Move on and talk about the Eurovision Song Contest, which is very important in my diary.
Of course it is.
It's very important. London's biggest screening party for the Eurovision Song Contest has been cancelled in protest to Israel's inclusion in the competition.
Honestly.
Yeah, the Rio Cinema in East London said this year's event would not take place. The cinema, however, will organise fundraising for the Palestinian aid effort. I just wonder what your view is here, because this is the EBU. This is a singing competition. Politics has no place in that. That being said, of course, Russia was excluded when Russia invaded Ukraine, and I think that is right and fair that was done. But what on earth are we playing at, where we are dictating what events can take place and sort of those big social events, which are now being marred by politics and people wading in?
I think it's disgraceful that they have done this, and as you said, I understand why Russia is excluded, but drawing parallels between Russia and Israel is a despicable comparison, and they are not the same. They do not operate in the same way, and therefore excluding both of them is insinuating that Israel sits in the same camp as Russia. I think that it is, as you said, the purpose of this event is to draw people together outside of politics to experience culture and music. But the point is that Israel is still taking part in the event. It's just they're choosing not to screen it because they have a problem with Israel. Exactly. And I think this is another example of where we have people putting their political views using cultural mechanisms. So they have a very big cultural capital. They want to put on this event, bring people together, which is a very good idea and a very laudable aim. And yet they are espousing their political values through this cultural mechanism, and that's not acceptable.
But we did also see that in the competition when Ukraine, with a song that was very, very average, won because they wanted to...
You're right. But let's not kid ourselves. It's all political voting. It always has been, and that's why we do so badly. Andy, have you any idea what I'm talking about?
I do. Yes, I'm familiar with the Eurovision. I'm familiar with all of the memes that have come from it. But I think what you're talking about is just a half-hearted attempt from a corporation to appease a lot of people, right? Or the organisers in this case, where they don't want to take a full stance against what's happening or against, and you can say what's happening on either side. Banning Israel from entering the competition would be one thing to do, but then excluding, not screening it in London doesn't make a lot of sense, because it's still going to be on TV. Everyone can still watch it.
It will be everywhere.
Exactly.
It is the biggest singing competition, by the way. I know you hate this, but it's one of the biggest events in the world. I think it's second only to Super Bowl.
Yeah, and again,
don't pity me, Dr. Renee.
it just puts their attempt into context, where when Russia invaded Ukraine, you ban them from the competition and you don't let them enter at all. And then when, several thousands of people are dying in Gaza, right? And then you choose to still allow them to participate, but then you choose not to screen it. It just seems half-hearted. And it's just
so you think Israel should not take part?
I think that's an interesting conversation to be had. I don't think a song contest should ever be politicized, because the people who are singing in that contest had nothing to do with the war. They weren't the ones invading, and they certainly weren't pulling the strings, as with Israel.
But it's quite interesting that, because
nor
then,
did
of
the
course,
Russian people who were going to sing.
Well, I was going to say that, and also in sporting events, of course, when certain countries are banned, and it's not actually those athletes who are responsible, for example, with Russian athletes.
And it is sometimes the very small levers that the nations can pull to have this kind of posturing position, so they ban people from the sporting events or from the singing competitions, and that feels like something they can do. But I think this, as you said, the issue of the screening is just political posturing with no impact, and it's the worst type, because it creates attention and they manage to get themselves into the centre of a story, and it has no impact at all, and therefore it's just a waste of time.